What's going on? Welcome to the Code Focus channel. In this video, I'll be showing you how to build a chart with ChartJS and React. For the chart data, I'll be setting up functions that will simulate an API request so that you can get an idea on how you'd set this chart up with your own data from a real API. This dashboard was built in a previous video of mine. If you'd like to watch it and build along, I'll provide a link in the description. Otherwise, you can go to the GitHub repo and clone this repository, which I will show you how to do now. But before we do that, you'll need to make sure you have Node.js and VS Code installed on your machine. So I'll go to my desktop and create a new folder. You can name this anything you want. I'm naming mine MeStore ChartJS. Once that's made, you can drag and drop it into VS Code. And now we need to clone our dashboard repository. So go to your browser and type in github.com and search for Code Focus channel. And then find the MeStore repository and click code and then HTTPS, copy that link. Once it's copied, you can go back to VS Code and open the integrated terminal by clicking Ctrl-tilde and then typing git clone, the URL, and then period. The period is so the repository gets installed in the current directory we're in. Once that is good, run npm I, which is npm install. That will install all the dependencies outlined in our package.json. Then run npm install react chart.js-2. What this dependency does is it makes it easier for us to work with ChartJS in React. Now navigate to the chart container component, and we're going to remove some stuff before we start working on the chart. So I removed basically everything from this file off camera. Just go ahead and replicate what you see on the screen now, and then open up your terminal and run npm start. This will run the React scripts and start our React app in development. As you can see, our container for our chart is empty, so let's get that fixed. We're going to start off with our create data function, and this is going to create some mock data for us to use within our chart. So we're going to use our month labels and map through them. So for each label, we're going to create a profit number using math.random and math.round. And then we'll return an object with month, sales, and profit. And the sales will just be a calculation based on the profit calculation. You can create this mock data however you'd like. This is just how I'm doing it. I'll console.log the create data return value, and if we open up the console in the browser, you can see this is what the data structures look like. Next up, we'll create the fetch data from API functions, and what this will do is simulate an API call by returning a promise. So in the promise, we're going to do a set timeout for 750 milliseconds, and the callback will resolve our create data function. So this fetch data from API function will return our data after 750 milliseconds. We'll then call this function in a use effect within our chart container component. The use effect will run once when the component mounts because we leave our dependency array empty. But we're actually going to create another function above the use effect that will handle setting state and all of that. So we need to wrap this in a use callback so that we can send it into the use effect dependency array without it causing an infinite loop, since we're updating state within here. Since our fetch data from API function returns a promise, we need to await that promise. So make sure to put the await keyword before fetch data from API, and also use async keyword before the function. Here we're going to console.log our results, and then call the getData function within our use effect and pass in getData as a dependency. Now when we open up the console, we should see our data once. So now we'll need to set our results to state. So we use the React use state hook. Whatever you name your state, you need to name the setter the same thing except with a set prefix. So then within our get data function, we'll set data with our results. And then we'll also create state for the loading state and set it to true as a default. And here we'll conditionally render some loading text if the component is loading. And within our get data, we'll set loading to false after we set our data. And as you can see, the loading state is present for 750 milliseconds. Now we will use the ChartJS chart component and set the type to line. So then we'll need to construct the data props for this component. And part of that is the labels. So we'll take our data and map through it and destructure the month out of there and then return it. So that creates an array with all of our month labels. Then we'll also need to create a datasets property that is an array with objects, each representing a line on the chart. This first one will be sales. You can give it an arbitrary background color. And then an arbitrary border color. I'm using the same color as my background except with a different alpha. And then our data, we will map through the data state and destructure our sales and then return the sales. So that will create an array with all our sale data points. You'll then want to do the same structure for the profits line. Once that's done, we can pass in our chart data to the data prop. And here we're getting some errors. This is because ChartJS is weird and you have to register a bunch of stuff at the top of your file. I'll go ahead and register everything. You can just follow along. Once that is done, you can open up your browser and check out the chart. It will look a bit malformed right now. We have to do some edits on the options prop on the chart component. So let's go ahead and do that. Make an options object and follow along. We'll take this options object and pass it in as an options prop to our chart. And if we refresh, you can see our chart is looking way better. Now in dark mode, we have an issue where the lines don't change colors properly. So we'll have to convert the options object into a function that returns the options object, and we'll pass in the UI's context. And we'll use the context theme to determine whether our chart colors should be dark themed or light themed. Then take this create options function and pass it into options and call it with the UI context. I am by no means a ChartJS expert. What we did today was relatively basic. There are plenty of configuration options you can add. I'd recommend taking a look at the ChartJS docs and then refactoring the configuration object a bit. You can also use different types of charts like bar charts and bubble charts. All you'd have to do is set a different type prop on the chart component and probably reconfigure the datasets object. One thing I do want to do is give these lines a fill. So we're going to set the fill to true on both these dataset objects. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day.